The 2021 NHL season is winding down. As the days go by, we're getting closer and closer to the offseason, which means we are getting closer and closer to the entry draft. Normally, I would just say we're getting closer and closer to the draft, but this offseason is different, and we have two separate drafts, the Seattle expansion draft and then, of course, the entry draft. Nonetheless, I thought today would be the perfect time to do my first 2021 NHL mock draft of the year. Now, I want to get this out of the way right off the get-go. I am no draft expert. I'm probably the furthest thing from it. I do have a good understanding of the top prospects for this draft, so that's why I'm only doing the top 8 for this mock draft. If you guys want better in-depth analysis on a lot of the prospects and maybe an entire first round mock draft, there are some channels out there that are really good at covering draft prospects and stuff like that. I'll link some down below in the description. Now, before we get into today's video, if you guys would like to stay connected outside of YouTube, you can go ahead and follow my social medias like Instagram and Twitter. The links to those will be down below in the description. The link to become a channel member is also down below in the description, or you can just click the join button next to the subscribe button. And most importantly, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And now let's begin. So here's the graphic I have made up for this mock draft. You may be wondering how I got the order of which teams are drafting in here, since obviously the draft lottery didn't happen yet. I just went on tankathon.com. It's a site where you can literally simulate the draft lottery yourself. I simulated it 5 times, and the 5th time is the order that I used. It's a pretty fun site, so if you guys would like to go mess around with the draft lottery simulator tool yourself, I will link Tankathon down below in the description, as well as some other channels that cover the draft better than I do. Nonetheless, let's get into this with the first overall pick. The New Jersey Devils got it in this simulation again, and with that first overall pick, I have the New Jersey Devils selecting 6'5" defenseman Owen Power out of the University of Michigan. With how weird everything is this year and the draft being wide open, I wouldn't say that there is a consensus number 1 overall pick. In Bob McKenzie's draft rankings, he actually said 10 of 10 scouts had Owen Power ranked as their number 1 prospect, so I guess maybe you could say he's the consensus number 1 overall pick, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if someone else is taken first overall. But if I had to make a prediction, which I'm literally doing here, I would say I think Owen Power probably goes first overall because he's a safe pick. I mean, I won't say it's a guarantee because you can never guarantee anything when it comes to prospects, but in all likelihood, Owen Power is going to be a good top 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League, and there's a chance that this guy is NHL ready right now. He's 6'5", he's over 210. In my opinion, Power already has NHL level skating abilities, which for his size is extremely important. He's got great vision, is able to get the puck up the ice quickly, put up 16 points in 26 games for Michigan this season, so he's got a pretty well-rounded offensive game. Is he the type of defenseman that's going to quarterback a top power play unit at the NHL level? Probably not, but I mean, hey, you never know. In terms of Power's defensive game, I would say like his offensive game, it's already pretty well-rounded. Like I said, he is a really good skater for his size, which allows him to defend well off of the rush, maintain good gap control, and obviously his size allows him to be pretty successful when it comes to puck battles in behind his own net and in the corners, and even battling with players for position out front of his own net. Overall, Owen Power is a very good prospect. I don't think he's ever going to be a Norris caliber defenseman or even like a number 1 defenseman on a team, but I would say it's a safe bet to say he's going to be a good top 4 defenseman in the NHL, so that's why I think he's going to go first overall, just because of how uncertain things are when it comes to this draft. Moving along now with the second overall pick, I have the Ottawa Senators selecting centerman Matt Beniers out of the University of Michigan, like Owen Power. And similar to what I said about Owen Power, when it comes to Matt Beniers, he doesn't have the highest ceiling out of any player in this draft class. I don't think so anyways, but it's another safe pick, and I think that's going to be a theme with a lot of the top picks in the 2021 draft. Matt Beniers is your prototypical two-way centerman. He has a very effective game in all 3 zones. He has an elite hockey IQ, and that's why I think he is such an intriguing prospect. A lot of times at the top of the draft, you see these guys drafted who have an elite offensive game. They put up a ridiculous amount of points, but they don't really know how to play without the puck or play in the defensive zone. That's not going to be a problem for Matt Beniers, and he's definitely no slouch offensively either. He was point per game this season for Michigan, had 10 goals and 14 assists for 24 points in 24 games, has a good mix of goal scoring and playmaking ability. Beniers is already a very well-rounded prospect, another guy like Owen Power who I think is a relatively safe pick, and that we could safely assume he's going to at least be an effective 2-way middle 6 centerman at the NHL level. So here I have Matt Beniers going number 2. I think he's definitely in contention for that first overall pick, and I'd be shocked if he slips out of the top 3. Next up with the third overall pick, I have the Buffalo Sabres selecting winger Dylan Guenther from the Edmonton Oil Kings of the WHL. This is an intriguing prospect. Even if you've never seen him play, if you just go on his hockey DB and look at his stats this season, albeit a very small sample size, he was video game-like in the WHL this season. In just 12 games with the Oil Kings, Guenther had 12 goals, 12 assists, 24 points. So a 2 points per game average and a goal and an assist per game average. Insane numbers. In my opinion, he is kind of a swing for the fences pick. He has a very, very high ceiling. He's just an ultra-talented offensive player, fantastic skating ability with the puck on his stick. He's a deadly two-way threat. He's a threat to shoot. He's a threat to pass. When doing a lot of my research for this video, going through prospect sites and looking at prospect reports, a lot of the criticism of Dylan Guenther was just that he should add a little bit of weight, which I'm kind of tired of hearing that. We heard that so much with Elias Pettersson. If he didn't put on weight, he was going to suck at the NHL level. He was going to get manhandled. Well, look how that turned out. I don't think the weight should mean anything, really. And also when it comes to Dylan Guenther, he's a young prospect too. He just turned 18 earlier in April. In terms of player comparisons for Dylan Guenther, the most popular one that I seen was actually Lucas Raymond, who was Detroit's 4th overall pick from the 2020 draft. If Dylan Guenther is a similar prospect to Lucas Raymond, then in all likelihood he's gonna go in the top 5 of this draft. Continuing on in the mock draft with the 4th overall pick, I have the Seattle Kraken selecting Luke Hughes, defenseman out of the USNDTP, the younger brother of Jack and Quinn Hughes. Like his brothers, Luke Hughes' biggest strength is on the offensive side of the puck. He's a great skater like Jack and Quinn, and his offensive awareness is great. He put up 4 goals and 11 assists for 15 points in 18 games in the USHL for the US National Development Team this season. The biggest question mark when it comes to Luke Hughes and how his game is going to translate to the NHL is his defensive game, and that's why I don't see him going over a guy like Owen Power, who already has a really well-rounded two-way game. Now, if Luke Hughes can be as good of an offensive defenseman at the NHL level as Quinn is, then his defensive game won't be the biggest concern, but I don't think he is as good offensively as Quinn is. So defensive game, definitely something Luke Hughes has to work on, but there's no doubt he is a top prospect for this draft with an extremely high ceiling, a ton of potential, and is already a very gifted offensive player. Next up with the 5th overall pick, I have the Anaheim Ducks selecting Swedish defenseman Simon Edvinsson, who has a similar stature to Owen Power. He's 6'5" and over 200 pounds. This season, Simon Edvinsson has split time between Frölunda's junior team and Frölunda HC of the SHL. He has 6 points in 14 games for the junior team and 1 point through 10 games with the pro team. This is one of the prospects that I don't know a whole lot about, so I had to dig a little bit more and do a lot more research when it came to Edvinsson than most of the other prospects we're going to talk about. But from a lot of the things that I've read and from everything that I've gathered, he is a very mobile defenseman for his size, which is extremely important, like I said with Owen Power, for someone of that stature to be able to get around the ice, especially at the NHL level. And something that Bob McKenzie said about Simon Edvinsson, 2 of our 10 scouts pegged him at number 1, which is very impressive, but 4 scouts ranked Edvinsson outside of the top 10. It's that kind of year is what Bob McKenzie said. So it seems like Simon Edvinsson is a little bit of a wild card. It's going to be interesting to see where he eventually ends up getting drafted, but the fact that 2 scouts had him ranked at number 1, I feel like is pretty telling. Moving on now with the 6th overall pick, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets selecting centerman William Eklund out of the SHL. William Eklund played this entire season at the pro level in the Swedish Hockey League and put up some pretty impressive results. In 40 games, had 11 goals and 12 assists for 23 points. Just for comparison, he plays on the same SHL team as Alexander Holtz does, who was a lottery pick by the Devils in the 2020 draft, and he actually outscored Holtz. Holtz only had 18 points in 40 games. William Eklund is another prospect who, like Matt Beniers, who we talked about earlier in the video, does already have a pretty solid defensive game. He's a very smart player. Obviously a high skill offensive player with a lot of different tools. In terms of his speed, it's good, but not great. One comparison that I've seen that I thought was extremely interesting, Eklund plays a similar style of game that Henrik Zetterberg played, and the fact that he's a good but not great skater in terms of speed, that does kind of remind me of Zetterberg because he's not necessarily a guy who would fly around out there. He sort of slowed the game down. Eklund is definitely an extremely intriguing prospect. If he slides down to like the 7, 8, maybe 9 spot in the draft, I think whatever team drafts him in that area could wind up getting a steal and just getting great value there. Moving along here with the 7th overall pick, I have the Detroit Red Wings selecting Kent Johnson out of the University of Michigan. This is another one of those players and picks that I think is kind of like a swing for the fences pick. Kent Johnson is an incredibly gifted offensive talent this season. As an 18-year-old freshman for Michigan, was over a point per game with 27 points in 26 games, 18 of those points being assists. He's a really good playmaker, has great vision. He's very creative with the puck on his stick. He has a wicked set of hands. He tried to pull off the Michigan goal this season. The thing with Kent Johnson is he definitely doesn't have the well-rounded game that Matt Beniers has, and I feel like that's why teams teams are going to shy away from, say, using a top 3 pick on him in this draft because, again, like I said, I think teams just want to be extra safe this year with all the uncertainty. But make no mistake about it, if a team gets Kent Johnson outside of the top 5, there's a chance it could turn out to be an amazing pick. This is a guy who could end up putting up a lot of points at the NHL level. And now finally, finishing out my top 8 mock draft here with the 8th overall pick, I have the San Jose Sharks selecting defenseman Brandt Clarke. Now, Brandt Clarke is sort of a tough prospect to predict in terms of where he's going to end up being drafted. He's a member of the Barrie Colts, but obviously this season there was no OHL season. So Brandt Clarke has actually been playing over in the Slovak League, where he has 6 goals, 7 assists, 13 points in 26 games, but the Slovak League isn't necessarily one of the top pro leagues in Europe by any means. It's a unique situation because Brandt Clarke is a guy who last year at this time was in contention and a candidate to go first overall in the 2021 draft, and obviously has kind of fell down the board a little bit, but this is a great prospect. He has a lot of good qualities offensively, skates well with the puck in transition, has a really good shot. I'm definitely pretty intrigued to see where Brandt Clarke ends up going. I could see him being drafted anywhere from number 5 to number 12 or something like that. So that is going to wrap up my 2021 top 8 NHL mock draft. Again, like I said at the start of the video, I am by no means a draft expert at all, so I am going to link some other channels down below in the description that I feel like better cover prospects and better cover the draft in general. But even though I am no expert, I still enjoy doing mock drafts. I enjoy making predictions, and I feel like that's kind of what this is, and this is now my 4th draft in a row making a mock draft. It's crazy how long I've been doing this. It feels like time is just flying by. But if you guys did enjoy today's video, please be sure to leave it a like. That is the best way to show your support. You can let me know what your top 8 mock draft will be down below in the comment section. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all in the next video.